moving on with the afternoon, let's flow into the next conversation, talking about peak innovation. Alain Sylvain, everyone!
Hello, what's up? How is everybody? You good? That was sad. That was very sad. How are you today? Everyone good? All right, I want to start by talking about the Beatles. Okay, you ready for a hot take? The Beatles. People worship the Beatles. They're sort of viewed undoubtedly as the most influential, creative force that's ever existed. They're on the list of all the top music bands that you'll ever see around the world. Ringo and Paul McCartney are knighted by the Queen. There are toys that are named after the Beatles. You can get like Lego sets. The Beatles have like Cirque du Soleil shows in Las Vegas. People tattoo the Beatles on their body. The Beatles are like a cult, and all you have to do is think about the impact. The impact of the Beatles, not only on rock and roll, but on all of Western culture, is simply incalculable. People look at the Beatles as a fundamental changing force for all of civilization. Everything comes down to the Beatles. But what I want to talk about today is, was it creative genius, or was it just great timing? Hot take, okay? So I want to argue that we prize creativity. We hold up creativity really high, at sometimes without thinking about the moments we're in and how relevant that creativity needs to be for today. What does the world need now? In this world of tech and innovation and creativity, we're just constantly trying to create new shit, but are we actually thinking about what the appetite is on the ground in real time? You know, I talk a lot about innovation. I have a strategy and design consulting company. You can check us out. It's called SYLVAIN.co. We do a lot of innovation, so I'm guilty of a bit of this. But as a whole, and even as I walk through these halls, I see as a society, we worship creativity. We go to school for creativity. We often say, are you creative? I'm creative. You know, you're so creative. There are books, right now, there are over 100,000 books on Amazon that have the word creative in the title. On your phone, there are dozens and dozens of apps that give you the power to, in fact, be a creative superpower. Some of us even identify as a creative, capital C, not lowercase c. I am a creative. I always laugh when I hear that. People take creativity really seriously, and we celebrate creativity as a culture. We do award shows like Cannes. You're so creative. No, you're so creative. Creativity is a weird sort of cult, so much so that we even forgive so-called creative genius. That some of the most creative people in the world, you will kind of turn a blind eye to some of the greatest, damages to society that you'll ever see. Creativity is heralded. In the US, 95% of US teachers believe creativity is a valuable skill for students' futures. 65% of CEOs say creativity skills were very important, ahead of emotional intelligence and digital skills. Ahead of emotional intelligence? I mean, creativity is important. I agree. It is very important. The World Economic Forum ranks creativity among the top 3 most valuable skills to have. Creativity is a fetish in our business culture. We talk about it, we hold it up, and really in the world of business, we think about it often through this word called innovation. You know, if you look at all the talks today or tomorrow, you'll see the word innovation bandied about, and certainly if you walk through these halls, everyone sort of has a promise to what makes what they do is innovative, and we talk about NFTs and blockchain and Web3 and so on as like next level, and we are curious about it as a society because we hold up creativity so high, and we invest in creativity. $2.5 trillion in global R&D are spent in trying to create new shit. We have an obsession with novelty, and if you look at the amount of patents that are created, it's thousands and millions of patents. Just think about it. In 2021, what is that? It's like over 3 million patents. Okay, 3 million people in 1 year were like, yo, I think I have something new to say. I think this is the most creative thing, and I need to put it down, and I need to claim it. we as a society are constantly running towards new, constantly running towards creative. And some of the most influential companies in the world, in fact, believe that their companies are rooted in creativity and rooted in innovation. And certainly Bob Iger and Disney believes that. But my question to you, have we seen a return on all this creativity, so-called creativity? All these apps, all these titles, all these books, all these innovations, all these venture capital leaps, all these patents. Have we as a society really seen a return on creativity? And I want to pull that back out into culture in general. If you look at culture in general, if you look at fashion, for example, you'll see there's like a constant cycle of things coming back. That you might even say that everything is derivative, that all the fashions from the 90s are kind of hot today. Or go to the movies. Go to the movies this week or next week. Virtually every hit movie that you'll see is some kind of reincarnation or sequel or remake of something made before. In this culture where we're constantly creating shit, where we're saying creativity is the most important thing, are we actually creating new things? Definitely in the world of innovation, definitely in the world of business and technology, there's definitely a performative nature when it comes to innovation. There's definitely, we were just talking about fake it until you make it. There's definitely this idea that like, yeah, I'm working on the next thing, it's built on X, it's built on Y. And think about some of the greatest innovations that we've seen. The iPhone was seismic. It was a seismic creative innovation, and they announce new iPhones every year or two, and they're supposed to be new and amazing. But really, look at it through the lens of creativity and innovation. Would you say that there has been any significant creative or innovative leap when it came to the iPhone over the last 15 years? Innovation and creativity are easily bandied about. And certainly in the tech and science space, people talk about this all the time. And there have been studies that have been done that are all about how the rate of disruptive tech and science is actually slowing. It's actually slowing. We're not actually creating as much as we think. We talk about it all the time. There are MBAs about creativity, they're design thinking, but we're actually not making new stuff. And actually, Silicon Valley is guilty for a lot of this because they've created this delusion, this overhyped fantasy that like, that's how you make it, is you make a promise about innovation, you make a promise about the future. But if you look at the top unicorns, only 6 of them, of the 73 unicorns, only 6 are profitable. Only 6 are profitable. Just think about that for a second. Have we really gotten a return on all this creativity? Creativity alone doesn't guarantee success. I'm here to argue that actually timing does. That actually it's about when you deploy that creativity. The creativity alone is a sort of, lonely masturbatory exercise. But thinking about what people want, what culture needs, where technology is and how it should evolve, that's a gift. Creativity to me is a given. But understanding timing is a whole different thing, and it's in our DNA actually. As a human species, everything we do is about timing. Everything we do, everything how we view the world, how our biology works, is actually related to timing from the very, very beginning. You think about the circadian rhythms that set the daily backbeat of every creature's life. Our bodies are essentially clocks, and certainly our civilizations, certainly our societies, we certainly move and behave and wait according to time. We think about time. Oftentimes we're distracted by creativity, but think just how monumental time is into everything we do. In the world of sport, it's all about timing. This quote about cricket, it's like 80% timing and 20% power. Why do I need power hitting when I can clear the ropes with timing? You think about Pelé, and in football, he was a master, of course, fast, strong, but it was actually in Messi's like this too, the strategic use of time. And this play, this runaround move was just about waiting for the right time. Or think about entertainment. Think about comedy. Comedy, what makes something funny sometimes is actually just waiting for that pregnant pause, that perfect moment. Timing is everything. It's certainly true in music. It's certainly true in music when you think about rhythm and how we move and we behave. Again, it's about timing. And you know this song. You know this song, right? Okay, so I'm a product of the 80s, okay? And when this song came out, it was crazy. It was crazy even in where I came from in Queens. And it's because of this amazing build-up to this amazing moment in the song. know this. You've heard this. That moment is a perfect example of our relationship to time, okay? We are obsessed with timing. Our bodies respond to timing. The instrumentation of that song is crazy. Quick side note, you should check out this YouTube video. It's hilarious. These two cats hear that song for the first time, and they're like, what? I love the guy on the left. It's fantastic. So my argument for you today, the next web, Amsterdam, my argument for you today is timing is more important than creativity. That actually, we need creativity, of course, but understanding time is everything. And I'm going to go back to my hot take about the Beatles. The Beatles would not be as successful as they have become if not for the emergence of television. Television and the Beatles coincided perfectly. In the 50s and 60s, the penetration of that new technology reached such a mass milestone, and all it needed was a vehicle, and the Beatles were there. These four good-looking boys from Liverpool who showed up well on television, certainly in the US on the Ed Sullivan Show, showed up at the perfect best time. It was about media. Or you think about radio. Radio was just before that. The Beatles need television as much as they needed radio. Radio propelled them forward, and certainly did other mediums like television and print. The world at that point, not only technology, but the world at that point was in the middle of globalization coming out of World War II. There was a new kind of mass culture that was emerging. Pop culture came at that time. And these four young dudes showed up like, hey, what? Yeah, we're here for that. And think about on an individual level. Young people around the world, in the UK and the US, were beginning to assert a new sense of independence. They wanted to break away from their parents. And the Beatles reflected that. They reflected this new progressive spirit where Dr. Martin Luther King's speech, the emergence of the birth control pill, all these things happen at the same time. And the Beatles, again, perfectly positioned to be a counterculture reflection and actually igniting this thing that we call Beatlemania. But what's worse than all that, what a better example to me of how they hit the perfect time was actually about the music that they made. The music that they made was actually Black American music. Rock and roll and soul and R&B was an invention of Black America, and the Beatles unapologetically said that they were going to bring Black music to the masses. They played the same music. So just think about that. That invention, that patent, so to speak, had existed for 20 years before, but it took the Beatles to make it mass. And so I ask, where's the creativity in that? Where's the creativity in that? Is it this here? Or why has it been co-opted? Why has it been co-opted by these four cats from Liverpool? When you look at their discography, you look at many songs were actually made by Black American artists for decades before. And I'll prove it to you. Go, Johnny, go, go. Right? You know this, right? Go, Johnny, go, go. I mean, go, Johnny, go, go. Come on. What more do you need to hear from me? Johnny, go, go. It's the Beatles maximized the time, and they achieved what I call peak innovation. The ideal prime moment to launch a new, innovative, creative idea. Creativity is important, innovation is important, but it's about when. And it's about understanding what people want. It's about understanding what society needs. It's about understanding how technology needs to evolve to satisfy the moment in time. And to me, it comes down to three things. One is the cultural climate. What does the world need now? What do people need as they connect in the way that people were living in a progressive culture in the 60s? Individual appetite. What do we want on a personal level? Do we want to connect with others? Do we want a sense of status? Do we want a sense of belonging? Or even technology, the infrastructure of technology. Where are we with technology? And how is it evolving? Those three things, to me, create peak innovation. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Wearable technology and Google Glass, that was laughable, right? But not laughable, it was interesting at the time, but probably ahead of its time to a certain degree. And it makes you wonder, what do we want now? And will the metaverse and will augmented and so on satisfy the user appetite in 2023 and 24? It's a question. Wearable technology like the Apple Watch or the Pebble existed for many years before the launch of the Apple Watch. This is not the only example. You can go back way in history. The elevator was actually laughed at when it was first came out in the 1800s. It seemed ridiculous, and people were unsure. Or you think about e-commerce. people laughed at it, people balked at it. E-commerce, many companies failed because they emerged before people were ready to put down a credit card, before they were ready to shop online. You think, this idea of pleather, vegan leather, it's the same concept, okay? If you're rocking a Veja, you know what I'm saying. Like, we call it vegan leather today, and it's acceptable and it's interesting, but pleather was deemed as wrong and maybe awkward 10 or 15 years ago. It's the same invention, it's the same technology. And with COVID, so many new things popped up. So many new sort of needs and cultural trends and technology moments popped up. Crocs. I don't know about you. Crocs were huge in the 2000s, and then they disappeared and laughed. But Crocs have come back with a fury, the fury of Crocs. People are wearing Crocs like crazy, somehow tied to the pandemic maybe. QR codes were laughable, but they found a new time, a new moment. Peloton, which I don't know if you have that here, but this idea of at-home exercise, huge. Clubhouse was supposed to change the world. No one's talking about, I did this conference a couple of years ago, people talked about Clubhouse. No one's talking about Clubhouse. It makes you think about generative AI, which, by the way, is like the rage in this conference, right? Like, has society met the need for this? Does culture really want this? Are people ready for this? I know it's interesting as a technology, as a creation. I know, as a technology and as an invention, it's fascinating. But as a valuable contribution to society, is the world ready for it, or interested, or wanting it? Are we talking about that enough? When 42% of startup success can be attributed to timing, that's from Bill Gross's TED Talk. 28% of startup success can be attributed to the idea. Timing is more important than the idea. This is true in science. There's this concept called the prematurity thesis, that sometimes there are discoveries that are just way ahead of their time. So in conclusion, to me, timing is more important than creativity. How do we achieve peak innovation? It's through the cultural climate, understanding the moment we're in as a whole, as a collective. What do we see? What do we want? Where are we as a society? Where are we going? The individual appetite. What do we want on a personal level, on a visceral, primal, evolutionary level? What are we needing? And then 3, innovation or infrastructure. Where are we in the evolution of a technology? And can we truly meet it properly? Time is an illusion. Timing is an art. My name is Alain. Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the conference.
Très bien, Alain. Thank you so much. Alain Sylvain, everyone. Amazing.